Looking to find cases of the fleeting nature of fame? Or perhaps cautionary tales for the importance of financial planning? From extravagant lifestyles to gross mismanagement, here are 10 Golden Age actors who died broke. Number 10. Dorothy Dandridge. Dorothy Dandridge was a trailblazing American actress, singer, and dancer who became one of the first black performers to achieve mainstream success in Hollywood. A huge feat considering hers was still during a time of intense racial segregation and discrimination. Dandridge was the first African-American woman nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress ever. This came after her outstanding 1954 role in Carmen Jones. This landmark achievement was groundbreaking for black actors everywhere. It also opened more doors for her by showcasing her ability to lead a major Hollywood production. She starred in other notable films like Bright Road and Porgy and Bess, earning acclaim for her charisma, acting skills, and beauty. Or at least this was what Hollywood wanted you to think. You see, despite her talent, Dandridge was limited by Hollywood's racial biases, often typecast or denied roles that could have elevated her career further. Many leading roles were reserved for white actresses, leaving her few options beyond stereotypical or secondary characters. In time, Dandridge faced consistent financial exploitation. Poor management by her financial advisors resulted in significant losses, including unpaid taxes and mishandled earnings. After a divorce from her second husband, Jack Dennison, she was left with legal debts and financial instability that didn't have an end in sight. Sadly, her failed marriage also brought on declining mental and emotional health. Dandridge faced significant personal challenges, including the care of her daughter, Carolyn, who had special needs. The stress of raising her child without sufficient resources added to her emotional burden. By the time of her death in 1965, she reportedly had less than $2 in her bank account. Dorothy Dandridge died of an overdose of antidepressants in September 1965. While the coroner ruled her death accidental, some speculated it might have been a suicide, as she had faced immense personal and professional despair. Dandridge's career reflected the systemic racism in Hollywood during her time. Even as a celebrated star, she was excluded from opportunities that were readily available to white actresses. As a black woman in a male-dominated industry, she equally lacked the support systems and advocacy networks that could have protected her from exploitation. Her legacy endures as a pioneer who broke racial barriers in Hollywood and inspired subsequent generations of black actors. Up next is a Canadian actor who went from booked and busy to a shocking bankruptcy filing.
I'm a lonely boy. I ain't got a home. I've got a voice.
Number 9. Corey Haim. Corey Haim was born on December 23, 1971 in Toronto, Ontario. He was raised primarily in Willowdale. It wasn't long before he began his acting career. He started off with a recurring role in the early 1980s Canadian series The Edison Twins. Next, he broke into the film industry in 1984 when he portrayed a young boy entangled in familial conflict in Firstborn. This was followed by a leading role in the TV movie A Time to Live, 1985, which earned him a Young Artist Award. Throughout the 1980s, Haim showcased his talent in various genres, including comedies like Secret Admirer, Murphy's Romance, as well as the horror film Silver Bullet. All of these projects hit the screen in 1985. Wouldn't you say booked and busy is the perfect way to describe Haim's career? And he had not even reached peak stardom yet. His role in Joel Schumacher's The Lost Boys in 1987 was what really propelled him to stardom. In the following years, Haim continued to appear in comedies such as License to Drive in 1988 and Dream a Little Dream in 1989. Corey Haim tragically passed away suddenly on March 10, 2010 in Burbank, California due to pneumonia. Sadly, the 80s film sensation turned out to be a frequent drug user who faced dire financial strain shortly before his passing. His longtime friend and co-star Corey Feldman even revealed that he had no home or car to his name. In his peak years, Haim was making a lot of money, the kind of money that many can only dream of. Sadly, like many child stars, he fell into a drug habit that subsequently killed his career. As the flow of acting gigs reduced, his frequent drug use and rehab stints did nothing but deplete his bank accounts further. According to Southern California Public Radio, Haim applied for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection sometime in 1997. His debts totaled to $100,000 owed to the IRS and an additional $100,000 in unspecified debt. Earlier reports that circulated assert that in a desperate attempt to raise funds, he once resorted to selling a tooth and some strands of hair on eBay in 2001. He attempted rehabilitation about 15 times. Sadly, none of it stuck. Would you believe that around 20 doctors were subpoenaed after his death? Apparently, he rotated different doctors just so that he could have access to more prescription medication. The star passed away in March 2010, leaving only a few $1,000s worth of cash, clothing, and royalty rights in assets. Number 8. Errol Flynn. Once one of Hollywood's biggest stars, Errol Flynn is remembered for his charismatic performances, dashing on-screen persona, and turbulent personal life. Known as the quintessential swashbuckler of the golden age of Hollywood, Flynn lived a life as dramatic and extravagant as any of his films. However, despite his fame, he died in 1959 at the age of 50 with significant financial troubles. As you will see, he left behind a legacy that juxtaposes immense talent with personal excess and mismanagement. Flynn shot to superstardom after his breakout role in Captain Blood. This was in 1935, and he went on to carve out his legacy in films like The Adventures of Robin Hood in 1938, The Seahawk in 1940, and They Died with Their Boots On in 1941. His athleticism, charm, and good looks made him a perfect fit for adventure films, and he became one of Warner Brothers' top box office draws during the 1930s and 1940s. Despite his significant earnings during his peak years, Flynn faced chronic financial problems later in life. The culprits? A combination of lavish spending, poor financial management, and personal issues. Flynn lived extravagantly, owning yachts, mansions, and engaging in frequent international travel. He also indulged in expensive hobbies like sailing and heavy partying. Then came the legal troubles, including 2 high-profile statutory rape trials. The trials damaged his reputation and drained his finances. Flynn also owed substantial amounts to the IRS, exacerbating his financial woes. Mismanagement and a lack of focus on long-term planning left him unable to recover. Flynn's pursuit of adventure and indulgence mirrored his on-screen persona, but it left him physically and emotionally depleted. Flynn died of a heart attack in 1959 while visiting Vancouver, British Columbia. At the time of his death, his financial situation was dire. Despite having earned millions over his career, his estate was left with significant debts.
Sexual healing, baby, is good for me. Sexual healing is something that's good.
Number 7. Marvin Gaye. Born on April 2, 1939, Marvin Gaye was the son of a church minister and domestic worker. Now dubbed the Prince of Soul, he began singing in the church with his father. We bet nobody could have predicted the final outcome when Marvin Gaye struck out to make a name for himself. But first, he was expelled from the household when he transitioned to secular music. Despite this, Gaye rose to prominence as one of Motown's leading figures. He excelled as both a producer and an artist in the 1960s. Gaye's contributions to music are still widely celebrated today. He has earned numerous accolades and honors, including a Grammy Award for his 1982 hit single Sexual Healing and a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. He was also posthumously inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and the Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame. However, financial challenges plagued Gaye. He filed for bankruptcy in 1976 due to outstanding alimony payments. He reportedly owed his ex-wife approximately $600,000. Compounding his financial woes was a substance abuse addiction. All these problems culminated in a temporary tax exile in Europe. Despite these setbacks, Gaye attempted to come back with Sexual Healing. This song became a massive success, topping the charts and selling millions of copies worldwide. But just when it looked like things were really looking up, the unimaginable happened. You see, his resurgence was short-lived as he was fatally shot by his father a day before his 45th birthday. Reports suggest that tensions between Gaye and his father had escalated. Some accounts say it was fueled by jealousy, while others blamed it on his father's disapproval of his music. There was even speculation that it was the result of a misunderstanding over an insurance policy. So, despite leaving behind a rich musical legacy, Gaye had little in the way of assets at the time of his death, save for his intellectual property rights. His estate had been burdened with debt, but somehow it was managed by executors who successfully paid off his creditors through the marketing of his music rights. Fortunately, his estate also accumulated substantial assets, ensuring financial security for his 3 children.
What are you looking at me that way for?
Hey, you big fathead.
What's the big idea?
That's for your swimming pools and your tennis.
Number 6. Veronica Lake. Veronica Lake was a luminous star of 1940s Hollywood. She became an icon of glamour and mystery with her signature peekaboo hairstyle and captivating screen presence. But despite her early success, her life spiraled into financial and personal turmoil, culminating in her death at the age of 50 with little to her name. Lake rose to fame with roles in films such as This Gun for Hire, I Married a Witch, and Sullivan's Travels, just to mention a few. Her ethereal beauty, sultry voice, and on-screen charisma made her one of the most bankable stars of the early 1940s. Paired frequently with Alan Ladd, Lake was celebrated as a leading lady in film noir and romantic comedies. Unfortunately, Hollywood's tendency to pigeonhole actors limited her opportunities. As she struggled to transition to more mature or diverse roles as she aged, the changing trends in Hollywood and her waning popularity left her without the same star power she had earlier. Sadly, she had not been diligent about financial planning or anything necessary to sustain her lifestyle. She filed for bankruptcy in the late 1940s, citing over $100,000 in debts. The loss of her fortune marked the beginning of a steep financial decline. Divorces and failed relationships also drained her finances further. By the 1960s, Lake's acting opportunities had largely disappeared. She took various low-paying jobs, including working as a waitress and a hotel clerk, which starkly contrasted with her glamorous past. Her health deteriorated due to chronic alcoholism, which led to cirrhosis of the liver and other complications. Her addiction also contributed to her isolation and inability to rebuild her career. In her final years, Lake attempted a modest comeback, including writing an autobiography in 1969. It was titled Veronica, the Autobiography of Veronica Lake. While it garnered some attention, it did not provide her with significant financial stability. Lake died in July 1973 of hepatitis and acute kidney injury. At the time of her death, she was nearly penniless and living in relative obscurity. Her ashes reportedly went unclaimed for years, a poignant reflection of her forgotten status at the time of her passing. Despite her tragic end, Veronica Lake remains a symbol of classic Hollywood allure. Her films, particularly her work in film noir, are still celebrated for their style and influence.
Just may be your brand new bus driver.
Well, bus driver you may be, but brand new you ain't.
Number 5. Gary Coleman. Gary Coleman emerged as the quintessential child TV star of the late 1970s and early 1980s. He captivated audiences with his confident demeanor and endearing personality. Despite his young age, Coleman exuded a maturity beyond his years, a quality accentuated by his congenital kidney condition, which aged him prematurely. Born Gary Wayne Coleman on February 8, 1968, he had a congenital kidney condition. As a result, he underwent 2 kidney transplants by age 16. Sadly, the effects of his medical treatment stunted his growth, leaving him at just 4'8" as he grew older. Coleman's talent was evident from a young age. He showcased in local Chicago commercials before catching the attention of Norman Lear's Talent Scout. His charm and comedic talent landed him roles in popular sitcoms like The Jeffersons and Good Times. Even NBC recognized his potential by granting him his own primetime sitcom. Considering the fact that renowned figures like Bob Hope and Lucille Ball praised his comedic genius, you can see how easily he got propelled into the spotlight of the talk show circuit and TV movie showcases. However, as Coleman transitioned into adulthood, he struggled to break free from his juvenile image. At some point, he felt trapped and pigeonholed by his childhood fame. Despite his efforts to move beyond his child star persona, Hollywood struggled to find suitable roles for him as an adult. Sadly, this led to a decline in his career. Alongside his professional challenges, Coleman faced personal struggles, including health issues and financial woes. He also had occasional run-ins with the law, from harassment to reckless driving. By 1989, Coleman would sue his adoptive parents and business manager for misappropriating his earnings. He did win a $1.2 million settlement, but quickly lost all of it to tax debts, legal fees, and continuous dialysis treatment. By 1999, Coleman declared bankruptcy and sought work outside of the entertainment industry as a security guard. In May 2010, Coleman died after suffering from an intracranial hemorrhage. Sadly, he never quite recovered his wealthy status. If you made it this far, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any updates from us.
Way up high, there's a land.
Number 4. Judy Garland. You certainly can't think of the Golden Age without thinking of Judy Garland. She is no doubt one of the most iconic performers of that era. Despite her legendary career and enduring cultural impact, Garland's life was marked by financial instability, personal struggles, and exploitation. Even worse, everything culminated in her tragic death at the age of 47. It is no secret that Garland's life and career reveal the darker side of fame and the systemic pressures placed on child stars and women in the entertainment industry. Right after her 1939 role as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, the 17-year-old became one of MGM's most bankable stars during the 1940s. Known for her incredible vocal talent and emotional depth, Garland was celebrated as one of the most versatile entertainers of her era, excelling in film, music, and live performances. But it wasn't without its drawbacks. She was subjected to relentless pressure to maintain this marketable image. Studio executives controlled her diet, appearance, and personal life, introducing her to amphetamines and sleeping pills to manage her weight and grueling work schedule. This early exploitation led to lifelong struggles with addiction and mental health, which affected her ability to maintain financial stability and professional consistency. Sadly, nobody had her long-term financial interests at heart. In time, Garland owed significant sums to the IRS due to unpaid taxes from the 1950s. Mismanagement of her finances, combined with her extravagant lifestyle, left her unable to recover financially, despite her significant earnings. By the time of her death, she was reportedly millions of dollars in debt. Judy Garland died on June 22, 1969, in London from an accidental overdose of barbiturates. At the time of her death, she was living in a rented apartment with her fifth husband, Mickey Deans, and was reportedly broke. Number 3. Erin Moran. Erin Moran was renowned for her contagious smile and animal-loving heart. Sadly, her later years were anything but rosy. The actress was born on October 18, 1960 in Burbank, California. She was the youngest child of Sharon and Edward Moran, who had 5 other children. By the time she graduated from North Hollywood High School, Moran would set her sights on the entertainment industry. Her acting career began with a TV commercial, where she really gained prominence as Joni Cunningham, Richie Cunningham's sister, on ABC's Happy Days in 1974. However, prior to this role, she was a regular on the series Daktari, 1966, and made guest appearances on various TV shows including My Three Sons in 1960, Family Affair in 1966, The Waltons in 1972, and a couple more. In addition to her television work, Moran also appeared in feature films alongside notable stars such as Debbie Reynolds in How Sweet It Is in 1968, Godfrey Cambridge in Watermelon Man in 1970, and Wayne Newton in 80 Steps to Jonah in 1969. Following the end of Happy Days later in 1984, Moran struggled to find consistent roles as an adult. She made sporadic guest appearances on scripted and reality shows, but she would eventually leave Hollywood after facing foreclosure on her home. Tragically, Moran passed away on April 22, 2017, in Corydon, Indiana, at the age of 56. She was found deceased in the trailer she shared with her husband and mother-in-law. Reports suggest that Moran's final years were marked by financial hardship and homelessness. At some point, she had even been expelled from her mother-in-law's trailer park residence. Apparently, she became accustomed to late-night escapades and returning home with the most disruptive behaviors in tow. From appearing haggard whenever she was publicly spotted and recognized, to always having a cigarette in hand, Moran may just have had the saddest couple of years up until her death. Friend and co-actor Paul Peterson admitted that he and a couple others tried to lend a helping hand at different points, but for some reason their efforts were never enough. In his own words, "It was a very dark room. Some don't find the light switch in time."
Where is that villain, Captain Hook? I'll slice him up and throw him to the crocodile.
Number 2. Bobby Driscoll. It goes without saying that Bobby Driscoll possessed an innate talent for acting, as he was discovered quite unexpectedly. He was only 5 and a half when he was discovered in a barbershop somewhere in Altadena, California. Throughout his 17-year career spanning from 1943 to 1960, he consistently delivered convincing performances on both the silver screen and television. Notable highlights in his filmography include The Finding Sullivans in 1944, The Song of the South in 1946, So Dear to My Heart in 1948, and The Window in 1949. His role in The Window notably earned him the Academy Award for Outstanding Juvenile Actor in the year 1950. That same year, he portrayed Jim Hawkins in Walt Disney's film Treasure Island. This role further solidified his position as a star, so it was not surprising that he received his Hollywood star on Vine Street shortly after. In 1950, Bobby Driscoll became the 9th of only 12 children in Hollywood's history to be honored with an Academy Juvenile Award for exceptional performances in feature films. During his peak years at Disney Studios, Driscoll was raking in $1,750 every week. Factor in the rate of inflation since then, and you will see that it was a whole lot of money. Sadly, the success of this fast-rising star did not last forever. The downward spiral of this child star began as he started to grow old. As the story goes, the lovable typecast of Driscoll was about to change. During a project meeting following the completion of Peter Pan, Disney stated that Driscoll seemed more suited for roles as a young bully rather than a beloved protagonist. Then came puberty. Like some 16-year-olds, Driscoll was hit with severe acne, so his change in boyish physical appearance was an instant setback that resulted in waning interest from Hollywood studios. So, despite his acclaimed voice work as Peter Pan in the 1953 animated film, his acting career was halted at 16. With prematurely terminated contracts and an inability to secure more roles, surely you can imagine how badly this was going to end. Consequently, during his post-Disney years, he managed to find some prominence on American television in various series and dramas such as Dragnet, Medic, and Climax. He still found roles in anthology programs like Fireside Theater, Schlitz Playhouse of Stars, and TV Reader's Digest, but none of this came close to his earlier works. In the mid-1950s, Driscoll grappled with drug addiction. To make things worse, Driscoll found himself on the wrong side of the law. With several encounters with law enforcement officers, Driscoll was eventually sentenced as a drug addict in 1961. Upon his release in early 1962, he pursued common jobs and reconnected with the Los Angeles art scene. After his parole expired in 1964, he relocated to New York City and immersed himself in the local avant-garde under the mentorship of pop art icon Andy Warhol. Somewhere in all of that, Driscoll made efforts at rehabilitation, but his tainted reputation hindered his return to the industry. This ultimately dug him deeper into a downward spiral. Considering he could not revive his acting career, he was thrust into a world of financial hardship. The end result was even more tragic. Bobby Driscoll was found dead in an abandoned East Village tenement on March 30th, 1968. Imagine being discovered by a group of children playing in an abandoned housing block. Even more heartbreaking is the fact that he was buried in an unmarked pauper's grave on Hart Island. We believe this might be the most heartbreaking end to a once promising career. Number 1. Fatty Arbuckle. Born Roscoe Conkling Arbuckle, Fatty Arbuckle was a popular American silent film actor, screenwriter, and director. He wasn't just one of the most popular silent stars of the 1910s, he was also one of the highest paid actors. We mean, signing a contract with Paramount Pictures for $1 million a year in 1920 was quite the feat. He was just that popular and influential. Well, that was until he got himself involved in an infamous and highly publicized murder trial. The scandal could be traced back to Labor Day in 1921. There was a lavish party, teeming with distinguished guests, alcohol, and music. Yet the festivities took a grim turn just hours into the evening. On that fateful day, he found himself in the company of the talented actress Virginia Rappe. By his own account, Virginia had already been complaining of fatigue and how she needed rest. Fatty would also recount how he escorted her upstairs to a hotel room to rest and recover. No one knows for sure what happened next, but several hours later, a piercing scream echoed through the air. Motionless on the floor. Chaos ensued as speculation swirled that Fatty had made unwanted advances toward her. The rumor was that she had resisted these advances and by doing so, had sealed her fate. Virginia's final words were reported, "He did this to me." And as you can imagine, it only fueled the flames of the rumors. However, Fatty maintains he was in the bathroom at the time of the incident. Sensationalist newspapers published lurid and often exaggerated accounts of the events. These certainly portrayed Arbuckle in the worst possible light. His account did not matter though, as the case was propelled to trial. Despite the absence of signs of physical coercion and the fact that she was fully clothed when discovered, 3 lengthy trials ensued. The first 2 ended in hung juries, and the third resulted in a full acquittal. Despite the acquittal, the lengthy and highly publicized nature of the trials had already tarnished his reputation beyond repair. The jury in the third trial even issued a formal apology to Arbuckle, but the damage to his career and public image was irreversible. Following the scandal, Arbuckle was banned from working in the film industry by Will Hayes, head of the newly formed Motion Picture Producers and Distributors of America, MPPDA. Although the ban was lifted a year later, Arbuckle struggled to revive his career as the stigma and blacklisting persisted. To worsen things, the legal battles had drained Arbuckle's finances, leaving him deeply in debt. The loss of his career and income left him unable to rebuild the fortune he had amassed during his peak years. Attempts to return to filmmaking under pseudonyms were also met with limited success. By the early 1930s, Arbuckle began to experience a modest career revival. He directed films under the pseudonym William Goodrich and was allowed to star in a series of short comedies. Although these comebacks hinted at a possible resurgence, they came too late to restore his financial stability or reputation. Arbuckle died of a heart attack in June 1933, shortly after signing a new contract with Warner Brothers to make feature films. He was reportedly optimistic about his future, but the years of stress, financial ruin, and public shaming had taken a toll on his health. At the time of his death, Arbuckle was financially destitute, living far removed from the lavish lifestyle he once enjoyed. Still think these stars have it easy? Do let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button. You also can't miss the video on screen.